The old space
That's my
station
husband.
drifted quietly above a dying red star. Its metal walls groaned every few minutes as if the entire structure wanted to give up. Inside one of its dim, flickering control rooms, engineer Thomas Hale sat alone beside a half-broken communication transmitter. He was tired. His hands were covered in grease and his eyes burned from staring at the tiny green lights that refused to turn on. He sighed. Come on. Just one more connection, he whispered to himself. Thomas had been repairing things his whole life. Broken ships, broken drones, even broken people. But this transmitter was different. It wasn't human-made. It was Zarthian, built by a race far older and far more advanced than humans. Still, the Galactic Council had chosen him for this mission, the only human among an alien crew. He didn't know if they trusted him or just saw him as a disposable mechanic. The others had gone to rest. Only Queen Leora of Zarth, their leader, remained in the room, standing tall in her silver armor. Her eyes glowed faintly blue in the darkness. She looked calm, but Thomas could sense she was uneasy. Human, she said quietly, her voice smooth but distant. It's late. You should stop for now. Thomas shook his head. If I stop now, this thing might never start again. I think it's almost ready. He bent over the transmitter, tightening a loose wire. Sparks flew, and a faint hum began to rise. For the first time in months, the machine came alive. Leora took a step forward, watching closely. The lights on the transmitter began to flash, 1, 2, 3 times in a strange pattern. Thomas frowned. That's not a normal frequency. It's like it's... Before he could finish, a voice broke through the static. It was soft at first, like a whisper traveling through deep space. The sound made the hairs on Thomas's neck stand up. Then the voice grew clearer. Thomas, it said. He froze. What the hell? Queen Leora stiffened. Her eyes widened. The voice continued, calm and sorrowful. Thomas, you found me. The air inside the control room turned cold. The flickering light steadied as if the whole station was listening. Thomas looked at the Queen. Did you hear that? She didn't answer. Her breathing quickened. Her hands trembled slightly, and something Thomas had never seen before. The voice came again, this time louder. Leora, my love, do you remember me? Everyone froze. Even the machine stopped humming for a second. The Queen's expression broke. Her calm mask shattered into disbelief. She took a slow step toward the transmitter. No, she whispered. That's not possible. Thomas looked at her, confused. What do you mean? Who is that? Her eyes filled with emotion, fear, sadness, maybe even hope. She turned toward him slowly and said the words that made his heart stop. That's my husband. The room fell silent. Thomas just stared at her, unable to speak. Her husband? But she was the Queen of Zarth, a ruler of an entire empire. Her husband had been dead for years. Everyone in the galaxy knew that story. He had died during the Human-Zarth War, saving his people from destruction. Thomas shook his head. Your husband? But he's dead. Leora's voice trembled. He was. I saw his ship fall into the storm fields myself. The voice spoke again, crackling with distortion. I am waiting. In the dark. Find me. Thomas turned back to the transmitter. The signal pattern was changing, now forming strange coordinates. Alien numbers and symbols danced across the screen. Someone's sending this now, Thomas said. This isn't a recording. It's live. The Queen's eyes shone brighter. That's impossible. No one could survive there. The signal began to fade, but the voice whispered one last thing before disappearing. The storm never ends, but I am still here. And then... silence. The transmitter went dead. Thomas sat back, stunned. He could still hear the voice in his head. It had said his name. How did it know him? Queen Leora turned away, her shoulders shaking. She was trying to hide her emotions, but her voice broke when she spoke. It can't be him. The council said his energy core was destroyed. There was nothing left. Thomas stood. Then who's sending this? Someone knows you. Someone knows me. Leora looked at him sharply. You? Why would my husband know a human engineer? Thomas didn't have an answer. But deep inside, a strange feeling stirred. Something between fear and curiosity. It was like a memory he didn't recognize trying to surface. Leora's guards entered the room after hearing the noise. She quickly composed herself, regaining her royal tone. "This room is sealed," she ordered. "No one speaks of what happened here." The guards nodded and left. Only Thomas and Leora remained. Thomas broke the silence. "You think it's a trick?" She didn't respond right away. Her glowing eyes met his. "I think," she said slowly, "that the universe just spoke to us, and it doesn't care about what's possible." Thomas looked back at the broken transmitter, still faintly glowing from the last signal. In that moment, he knew one thing for sure. Whatever that message was, it wasn't over. Somewhere in the dark, someone was waiting for them. The next morning, the space station floated silently above the dying red star, but for Thomas Hale, silence no longer meant peace. It meant questions. He hadn't slept. The sound of that mysterious voice kept playing in his mind. "Thomas, you found me." It had spoken his name and the Queen's. He had never met her husband, never even seen a photo. So how could the voice know him? Thomas sat in the repair bay, staring at the half-broken transmitter he'd fixed the night before. The machine looked dead again, but he could feel a faint hum beneath its metal surface, like a heartbeat that refused to stop. He ran his scanner over it, muttering, "Show me something." "Come on." Suddenly, a tiny red pulse blinked across the screen. The transmitter wasn't dead. It was listening. Before he could continue, the door hissed open. Queen Leora entered, followed by her guard, a tall alien with silver armor and a face like carved stone. Leora's tone was calm, but her eyes betrayed her unease. "You are still working on that?" she asked. Thomas nodded. "I can't just ignore it. Someone's sending something from the storm fields. It's not a ghost signal," the guard growled. "You dare accuse the Queen's dead husband of haunting us?" Thomas didn't answer. He was tired of being treated like a child among aliens. Instead, he pressed a few buttons, and the screen lit up with the same strange coordinates from the night before. Leora froze. "Those numbers." "I know them." She stepped closer. "They're from the storm belt, where his ship was lost." Thomas turned to her. "Then maybe he's alive." She shook her head. "No one survives there. The storms tear through time and space. Even light cannot escape." But she didn't sound sure. For the first time, Thomas saw doubt in her eyes and in a flicker of hope. He played the signal again. This time the voice came through louder, almost desperate. "Find Mio in the storm fields. Hurry." Then came strange clicks, alien data, repeating over and over. Thomas decoded part of it and frowned. "It's memory data, encrypted." Leora's guard snapped. "That's forbidden technology. Shut it off before the council detects it." But Leora raised her hand. "Wait." She leaned closer to the console. "Play it again," Thomas did. The moment the voice echoed again, Leora whispered something under her breath. An old Zarthian prayer. Her eyes softened as if she could feel him through the sound. Thomas could sense her pain. He didn't know why, but hearing the voice hurt him too. It was like his chest tightened every time that signal played. When the recording ended, Leora looked at him and said quietly, "That voice. It's not just my husband's." Thomas blinked. "What do you mean?" She turned away, hesitating. "It sounds mixed, half his tone, half something else." Her gaze drifted back to Thomas. Half human, the room fell silent. Thomas laughed nervously. "You can't be serious." "I wish I wasn't," she said softly. When he died, his ship carried human scientists. They were experimenting with something forbidden. Project Origin. "Do you know what that was?" Thomas shook his head. "Human and Zarthian minds," she said slowly, "joined through memory crystals to share thoughts, emotions, even identity. But the council destroyed every record of it after the war." Thomas stared at her. "You think I'm connected to that?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "The signal called your name. Maybe you are more connected than you know." He didn't want to believe it. He was an engineer from Earth, nothing more. But deep inside, something started to crack open. For a moment, he saw flashes. A battlefield, alien soldiers, and a tall Zarthian man standing beside a silver queen. The man turned toward him and said, "Protect her always." Then the vision vanished. Thomas gasped, grabbing the edge of the table. "What was that?" Leora rushed forward. "What did you see?" He shook his head, breathing hard. "I saw him." Leora stared, eyes wide. "Then it's true." Her guard stepped forward angrily. "This is madness. He's manipulating you." But Leora ignored him. "The human must not speak of this," the guard warned. Thomas raised his voice. You can threaten me all you want, but that signal is real, and I'm going to find out who sent it. Leora looked at him for a long moment. Then, against every rule she knew, she said, I'll help you. The guard's eyes widened in shock. My queen, she silenced him with a single gesture. Prepare a ship. We leave for the stormfields at dawn, the guard protested. The council will destroy us. Leora's voice was steady now, but filled with quiet fire. Then let them. I will not ignore the echo of my past. Thomas watched her walk away, her royal cloak flowing like silver smoke behind her. He looked back at the transmitter. The coordinates still blinked slowly, like a heartbeat calling to him. He didn't know if he was following a ghost, a machine, or a secret part of himself. But one thing was certain. The past wasn't done with him yet. The forbidden memory, the stars stretched like cold dust around the ship as it cut through deep space. Thomas Hale sat in the co-pilot seat, staring at the glowing storm ahead. Lightning flashed across the planet below, the storm fields of Zarth, a world banned by every galactic law. Queen Leora stood at the viewing deck, her silver armor reflecting the pale light. Her guards had begged her not to come. The council would call it treason, but she didn't care anymore. Somewhere inside that endless storm, a voice from her past was calling her name, and a human was somehow tied to it. Thomas finally broke the silence. You really think we'll find him there? Leora didn't turn. I don't know, but I can't ignore what I heard. Her voice was soft, almost human for the first time. When you've loved someone and lost them, every whisper feels like hope. Thomas looked at her, not as a queen, but as a person carrying too much pain. He wanted to say something comforting, but the words stayed trapped. Instead, he focused on the coordinates flashing across his screen. We'll hit the upper storm layer in 20 minutes. After that, we'll be blind. Good, Leora said. The council can't track what they can't see. When the ship entered the storm, everything went black. Thunder crashed. Electric clouds swallowed them whole. The ship shook violently, alarms blaring in every language Thomas didn't understand. Stabilizers down to 40%, he shouted. Leora grabbed the controls beside him, her movements precise, almost graceful. Keep her steady. Then out amid the chaos, the transmitter lit up again. A wave of static filled the cockpit. Thomas looked at it in disbelief. It's back! Through the noise came the same voice, clearer than before. Leora, Thomas. You're close. Thomas's heart raced. He said my name again. Leora's breath caught. And mine. Then the screen flashed bright blue and a data code appeared and a memory signature. Thomas frowned. It's a neural code, but it's mixed with DNA markers. Leora turned to him sharply. Human markers? He nodded slowly. Half human, half Zarthian. The code pulsed faster. The voice returned, almost pleading now. Remember who you are. And then, something hit Thomas. A burning light flashed behind his eyes. He screamed, clutching his head as waves of strange memories flooded in, visions that weren't his. He saw a battlefield covered in fire, alien soldiers running, the sound of plasma cannons. A tall Zarthian warrior stood before him, face noble, eyes burning blue like Leora's. And beside him, the queen herself, younger, smiling. Then came the explosion. The warrior turned toward Thomas, shouting through the flames, If this doesn't work, protect her. Promise me. Thomas gasped and fell to the floor, trembling. Leora knelt beside him. Thomas, what did you see? He opened his eyes slowly. I saw him. Your husband. He was talking to me. She stared at him, fear and wonder in her expression. That's impossible. He shook his head weakly. He said something about protecting you. Like he knew me. Leora stood up, pacing. If the human experiment of Project Origin truly happened, then his consciousness could have been transferred? Transferred? Thomas repeated, sitting up. You mean into me? She turned toward him. Maybe not all of him, but a fragment enough to make you respond to his signal. Thomas laughed, but it wasn't out of humor. So I'm walking around with part of your husband's mind inside me. Leora's voice broke. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. The ship jolted again. Lightning flashed across the glass, illuminating their faces. For a moment, Thomas saw two reflections, himself and another man's face flickering beside his, alien and regal. The system's alarm beeped. Approaching source signal. They looked outside. Through the roaring clouds, a faint blue glow shimmered below. Leora whispered, "That's it. The storm's heart." Thomas steadied the ship as they descended. The glow turned into a massive structure. A buried research facility, half destroyed, half alive. The moment they landed, the transmitter stopped glowing. The voice went silent. They stepped out into the storm. The wind roared, pulling at their suits, but Thomas could feel something stronger. A pull inside his chest, guiding him forward. They entered the ruined facility. Everything was covered in dust and ash. Old human symbols marked the walls mixed with alien text. "This was a joint lab," Thomas murmured. "Humans and Zarthians worked together here." Leora's eyes darkened. "Then it's true. The Council lied to us both." As they moved deeper inside, the walls flickered with faint blue light. Thomas brushed his hand against a control panel. It recognized his touch and powered on. Leora gasped. Only Zarthian royal blood could activate this tech. Thomas looked down at his glowing hand. "Then what does that make me?" The answer came not from her, but from the machine itself. A voice echoed from the walls. Half human, half Zarthian, the same voice from the transmitter. "You were born to finish what I started. And save her." Leora's eyes filled with tears. "Kareth," she whispered. The light around them grew brighter, forming a holographic image of the Zarthian general, tall and noble, with eyes that matched Thomas's perfectly. Thomas took a step back, his voice trembling. "That's me," Leora's heart pounded. "No, that was my husband." The hologram looked at them both and smiled faintly. "Then perhaps we are both right." The lights flickered and the storm outside roared louder, as if the planet itself was awakening. Thomas stared at the hologram, realization dawning slowly. Whatever this was, he wasn't just repairing a transmitter anymore. He was repairing a forgotten connection between two worlds and two souls. The law of the dead. The research facility shook as lightning struck above. Dust fell from the ceiling and old machines hummed weakly after centuries of silence. Inside, Thomas Hale stood face to face with the holographic image of General Kareth of Zarth, the Queen's long-dead husband, and the man whose memories seemed to live inside him. Queen Leora could barely breathe. She reached out a trembling hand toward the projection, her silver eyes shimmering. "Kareth," she whispered. The hologram looked at her, his expression soft and full of sorrow. "My love, it seems time has cheated us both." Thomas stepped back, confused. "You're not real," he muttered. "You're just Data." The hologram turned toward him. "Data can't feel pain, Thomas. But you can, because a part of me lives inside you." Thomas's heart pounded. He wanted to deny it, but deep down he could feel the truth. That strange warmth in his dreams, the voice calling his name. It all made sense now. He wasn't just human. He was a vessel for something ancient. Something forbidden. Leora finally spoke, her voice shaking. "The law of the dead forbids resurrection of any royal soul. If the Council finds out, they'll destroy both of you." Thomas frowned. "Wait, destroy me? I didn't ask for this." Leora looked at him sadly. "It doesn't matter. You carry a forbidden essence. You are living proof that the Council lied about erasing Project Origin." The hologram flickered. "They will come for you, Leora. You must choose." "Choose?" she asked. "To protect their law, or to protect him?" The light began to fade. Thomas reached forward, desperate. "Wait, what do you mean?" The hologram smiled faintly. "Remember the storm, Thomas. It hides the truth they fear most." And then the image vanished. The room went dark again. For a long moment, only the storm's roar filled the silence. Leora sank to her knees, overwhelmed. "I saw him die. I buried him in my heart." "How can he still exist inside you?" Thomas knelt beside her, his voice gentle. "Maybe it's not him exactly. Maybe it's a memory of who he was. A piece that didn't want to die." She looked at him, eyes full of pain. "You sound like him." He forced a smile. "Maybe that's just the part of me that learned how to care." Before she could answer, the ship's alarm blared. A red light flashed above them. Thomas checked the scanner. "Incoming ships. Multiple signatures." Leora's expression hardened. "The Council found us. How?" "They track forbidden energy." The moment his memory activated, they felt it. She stood, her regal presence returning, though her eyes still trembled with emotion. "We have to leave now." They ran through the corridors as explosions echoed above. Pieces of the ceiling fell and the air smelled of burning metal. Thomas shouted over the noise. "If they catch us, what will they do?" "Erase us," she said simply. "Completely?" He stopped for a second, stunned. "Erase?" "Not kill. Erase. Every memory, every record gone. Like we never existed." That single word chilled him more than death. They reached the hangar where their ship was docked. Leora's guards were already fighting off council drones that had descended through the storm. The sky outside glowed purple with plasma fire. "Get on board," she ordered. Thomas sprinted up the ramp, but as he turned back, he saw one of the guards fall. Without thinking, he ran back down, grabbed the injured alien by the arm, and dragged him to safety. The Queen stared at him in disbelief. "Why would you risk yourself for him?" Thomas shrugged breathlessly. "Guess the part of me that's human doesn't know how to quit." She almost smiled despite the chaos. "You sound more Zarthian than you think." As they lifted off, the storm raged around them. The facility exploded behind, swallowed by lightning. Inside the cockpit, Thomas tried to stabilize the ship. "They're right on us." Leora activated the stealth shields. "The storm will hide us for now." "But not for long," he looked at her. "You're going to fight them, aren't you?" She hesitated. "I swore an oath to protect the law, but that law was built on lies." Thomas turned toward her, his voice steady. "Then maybe it's time someone broke it." She met his eyes, human eyes, filled with fire and fear and something she hadn't seen in centuries. Hope. Later, when the ship finally steadied inside the upper cloud layer, Leora stood quietly near the window. The storm painted streaks of blue light across her armor. Thomas joined her, still shaking from the battle. "So when what now?" She didn't look at him. "The council will call me a traitor. You an abomination. There is no way back for us." He tried to smile. "Could be worse. I've been called worse things by human captains." That earned him a small, real smile. After a pause, she whispered, "You know, in my world, death means peace. But if part of him lives inside you, maybe death isn't what I thought it was." Thomas looked at her, quietly moved. Maybe love doesn't follow rules either. The ship's console beeped softly and the transmitter was still active. A single new message blinked across the screen. "The truth lies beneath the storm. Find the core." Leora read it aloud. "The core? That's where the royal energy was sealed." Thomas nodded. "Then that's where we go next." She turned to him, eyes fierce now. "If we find it, we break the law of the dead itself." He grinned. "Guess it's time someone did." Outside, thunder cracked across the sky, lighting their faces like ghosts of a forgotten past. The Queen and the human stood side by side, fugitives from two worlds, united by something the galaxy would never forgive. As their ship disappeared deeper into the storm, one thought echoed in Thomas's mind. If breaking the law of the dead was wrong, then maybe being human was too. The storm planet. The storm raged endlessly across the planet's surface, a whirl of blue lightning, dust, and magnetic fire. Every second, the thunder cracked so loud it felt like the planet itself was screaming. Through that chaos, a small ship fought its way down. Inside, Thomas Hale gripped the controls, sweat pouring down his face. "We're losing altitude," he shouted over the noise. Queen Leora stood beside him, holding the console to keep her balance. Her silver eyes glowed faintly as if reflecting the storm's rage. "Keep the ship steady," she commanded. "The signal's coming from below the surface." Thomas forced the thrusters to full power. The ship broke through a wall of lightning and dove into thick, dark clouds. For a moment, everything went black. Then out of the chaos, a faint blue glow appeared and a beacon deep inside the storm. "That's it," Thomas breathed. "That's the core." They landed hard, metal grinding against the rocky surface. Sparks flew. The ship hissed and settled. Silence. Only the sound of wind scraping against the hull. Thomas looked out through the viewport. The planet's ground shimmered like glass, smooth and cracked with strange energy running beneath it. "It's like the surface is alive," he whispered. Leora's voice was calm but distant. "This is where my husband died." Thomas turned to her. "Are you sure you want to do this?" She met his eyes. "There's no turning back now." They stepped outside into the storm. The air felt heavy and electric. Every breath stung like cold fire. Thomas's scanner beeped wildly. "Energy levels are off the charts. This isn't natural." They followed the beacon through the wasteland until they reached the entrance of a buried facility. Half human, half Zarthian design. The walls were scorched, the doors twisted by the storm's force. Leora placed her hand against a glowing panel. It recognized her touch and the doors hissed open. Inside was darkness and silence. As they walked through the long corridor, their footsteps echoed like ghosts. Old signs in both languages lined the walls. Project Origin, access restricted. Thomas ran his hand over the words. So it was real all along. Leora's tone was bitter. The council lied to protect themselves. They called it an abomination, but they used it anyway. She turned to him. You are the proof of their sin. Thomas didn't answer. Deep down, he could feel something strange. A pulse inside his chest that matched the hum of the facility. The deeper they went, the louder it got. Then they entered a vast chamber. In the center stood a stasis pod surrounded by glowing cables. Inside the pod was a body. Thomas froze. The man inside looked exactly like him. Same face, same eyes, same scar on the jaw. But the skin shimmered faintly blue. Alien, not human. Leora gasped. Her voice cracked. Kareth? Thomas took a step closer, unable to look away. It was like staring into a mirror from another world, he whispered. That's him. Isn't it? She nodded slowly. My husband. For a long moment, she said nothing else. Then in a soft voice, and somehow, Thomas's head spun. I don't understand. Leora moved toward the control terminal. The screen flickered alive. Old data logs filled the air as holograms. Humans and Zarthians working together, arguing in panic. The general's body is failing. Transfer his memory core into the prototype, now. But it's human DNA. The council will do it. It's the only way. The images vanished. Silence returned. Thomas's hands trembled. So they tried to save him by putting his mind into a human body. Leora whispered. And that human body was you. He shook his head. No, that's impossible, but the truth was too clear. The memories, the voice, the connection, it all fit. Leora's eyes filled with tears. You carry his soul, Thomas. Maybe not all of it, but enough to remember me. Thomas turned away, his voice breaking. Then what am I? Him, me, both? She stepped closer. You are what love made from loss. Before he could respond, alarms blared through the facility. A mechanical voice spoke. Unauthorized presence detected. Purge sequence initiated. Red lights flashed. The walls began to close in. Thomas ran to the pod. We can't leave him. Leora grabbed his arm. If we open it, the core will overload. He looked at the man in the pod, his own face staring back at him, frozen in time. What if he's still alive in there? Leora hesitated. Then he has been suffering for centuries. The ground trembled. Machines screamed. The storm outside grew louder. Thomas clenched his fists. No one deserves to be forgotten like that. He hit the release panel. The stasis pod hissed open, steam flooding the room. The figure inside began to dissolve, glowing particles rising into the air, merging with the energy field. Leora screamed, Thomas, stop! But it was too late. The energy surged out, hitting them both. In that blinding moment, Thomas saw visions, Kareth's memories, Leora's laughter, the war, the sacrifice. And then a voice whispered inside his mind, You've set me free. When the light faded, the pod was empty. The body was gone. Leora fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. He's gone. Truly gone. Thomas staggered, holding his chest. No, he said softly. He's part of me now, and all of him. The storm outside began to calm. The thunder softened to a low hum. Leora looked up at him, eyes wide. The planet. It's stabilizing. Thomas smiled weakly. Maybe he was the storm. For the first time in centuries, the sky above the planet broke open, revealing stars. They stood together, watching as light returned to the world once cursed by war and law. Leora whispered, The council will never forgive this. Thomas replied quietly. Then let them remember, humans don't fear the impossible. The Queen's choice. The storm outside had finally fallen silent. For the first time in 1,000 years, the skies above the storm planet showed the stars again, clear, bright, and cold. Inside the ancient facility, Thomas Hale stood at the edge of the broken stasis pod. The glowing mist that had once been General Kareth's body was gone, absorbed into him. He could feel it inside, and not a presence, but a memory. A heartbeat that wasn't his. Queen Leora knelt beside the shattered pod. Her silver armor was cracked, her hands trembling. She whispered, "He's truly gone now." Thomas watched her, unsure how to speak. "He didn't die, Leora. He became part of something new." She lifted her gaze slowly. "You mean part of you?" He nodded. "I didn't ask for it, but it's what happened. His memories. They're in me now. And they're not fighting me. It's like he wants me to protect you." Tears formed in her eyes, glowing faintly in the blue light. That's exactly what he said before he died. For a moment, silence filled the chamber, heavy, sacred. Then, outside the facility, the sound of engines broke the peace. Thomas froze. That sound? Leora stood quickly. Council ships. Through the shattered glass walls, they could see the faint lights of several large vessels descending through the thinning clouds. Sleek, golden, and deadly. Leora's voice turned cold. "They came faster than I thought." Thomas frowned. "Can't we talk to them? Explain what happened?" She shook her head. "There's nothing to explain. The law of the dead is absolute. You and I have broken it." Thomas clenched his fists. "Then we fight." She looked at him, really looked, and for the first time she saw not just a human but something greater. Something the galaxy had never seen before, a soul that refused to obey limits. Minutes later, their ship was ready. The wind outside howled again, but it was no longer wild. It was calm before the storm of war. Thomas powered up the controls. "If they open fire, we're done." Leora adjusted the shields. "They won't fire first. They'll demand surrender." "And what will you say?" Her eyes softened. "That the dead don't follow orders." The communication panel flickered to life. A hologram appeared, a council commander with golden skin and eyes like molten iron. "Queen Leora of Zarth," he said in a booming voice. "You stand accused of violating galactic law and reviving a forbidden soul. Surrender the human and you may live." Leora's reply was calm and sharp. "You speak of law, but you forget what justice means. He carries the soul of a hero, one you erased from history." The commander's tone darkened. "You dare defend corruption? He is an abomination." Thomas leaned forward. "Maybe, but he's still alive, and that's something your laws can't understand." The commander's gaze turned to him, disgusted. "Human arrogance. You play with powers beyond your kind." Thomas smiled faintly. "Funny, so did you. You just failed." Leora's hand hovered over the controls. "Enough talk." Outside, the council ships charged their weapons. Blue light flooded the storm clouds. Thomas looked at her. "What's your plan?" Her voice was steady. "I make my choice." The first plasma blast hit their shields, shaking the ship violently. Thomas gritted his teeth. "Shields at 40%. Leora's hands danced across the console, redirecting energy from the reactor core. He stared at her. "That'll overload the engines." "I know," she said softly, "but it might give us a chance." Thomas grabbed her wrist. "You'll die if the core ruptures." She met his eyes, calm, certain. "I already died once when I lost him. This time I choose my ending." He shook his head. "No, not again. He gave his life for you. Don't throw it away." Her lips trembled. "And what about you, Thomas? What are you willing to give?" He didn't hesitate. "Everything." She looked at him for a long moment, human eyes locked with alien ones. Then she whispered, "Then we do this together." The ship burst upward through the storm, racing toward the fleet. Lightning trailed behind them like wings of fire. Thomas activated manual control. "Targeting their flagship." "Don't destroy it," Leora said. "We're not here to kill, and we're here to show them." The ship's core began to glow dangerously bright. The readings spiked. "It's overloading," Thomas yelled. Leora placed her hand over the console and closed her eyes. Her body glowed faintly, the same energy that once came from Kareth's essence. "I can channel it," she whispered, "but I need you to guide it." Thomas nodded, gripping the controls. "Let's do it." The light inside the ship spread, pulsing through the walls. Outside, the storm that once covered the planet began to rise again. Only now it wasn't wild. It was following them. The council ships tried to retreat, but the energy field wrapped around them like a living thing. From inside, Thomas shouted, "We're controlling the storm." Leora's voice was weak but steady. "He said it would protect us." He was right. The storm spread wider and wider, engulfing the fleet. But instead of destroying them, it deactivated their weapons. Every ship went dark. The commander's last transmission flickered through the radio. "What have you done?" Leora answered softly. "We broke your law, and found life instead." When the storm finally faded, the sky was silent again. The council ships drifted powerless, their energy drained. Thomas turned to Leora. She was pale, exhausted, but alive. He smiled. "You did it," she leaned back weakly. "No, we did. Human and Zarthian. One heartbeat." He laughed softly, the tension fading from his face. "Then what now?" She looked out the window at the stars. "Now," she said, "we build something new. A galaxy where the dead don't make the rules anymore." Thomas nodded slowly. "And if they come for us again?" She smiled faintly. "Then they'll meet a storm they can't control." The camera, or narration, would fade on the image of their small ship gliding through the calm blue sky. Two souls bound by love, defiance, and a promise that no law could break. Because sometimes, to be human is to break the impossible. The new signal, the storm, was gone. For the first time in centuries, the sky above the storm planet was clear. The clouds had split apart, revealing the stars, millions of them, bright and alive. It felt as if the entire galaxy had opened its eyes again. Inside the small ship drifting above the calm world, Thomas Hale sat quietly at the control deck. Everything was silent now. No alarms, no voices, no chaos. Only the faint hum of the engines and the soft breathing of Queen Leora, who rested near the window. She looked pale. The energy she used to calm the storm had drained her completely. But her eyes, those silver eyes, were still full of life. Thomas checked the readings. "The planet's stable," he said softly. "The storm's completely neutralized." "You did it," Leora smiled weakly. "We did it. The storm followed your will, Thomas. That was something even Kareth couldn't do." He looked away, uneasy. "Maybe it wasn't me. Maybe it was him." She shook her head. "No, he's gone. What remains is you." Her words hung in the air, quiet and gentle. Hours passed. The two sat in silence, watching the clouds drift below. Thomas adjusted a damaged console, trying to repair the communications array. The transmitter sparked weakly. He muttered, "Old thing's still half dead." Leora tilted her head. "You really can't stop fixing things, can you?" Thomas smiled faintly. "Guess it's a habit. Back on Earth, I was always patching up broken machines, broken systems, broken lives." She watched him, eyes thoughtful. "And now you fix something far greater, a broken galaxy." He chuckled. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves." Before she could answer, the transmitter flickered to life. A soft hum filled the cabin, followed by static. Thomas frowned. "That's impossible. It's not connected to any network." Then, a voice emerged through the static, soft, familiar. "Leora." Thomas and Leora's heart skipped. "No, it can't be." The voice continued, warm and calm. "If you're hearing this, it means you've done what I could not. You've freed us." Thomas froze. "It's him." The message was faint, not alive, but like an echo left behind in the stars. The storm was never just a weapon. It was memory, the pain of two worlds trapped in endless conflict. "You've set it free." Leora pressed her hand to her chest, tears forming. "Kareth, you don't need me anymore," the voice said. "You have each other. Protect this piece, and remember what we were." And then the voice faded into static. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was heavier than war. Leora finally whispered, "He's really gone this time." Thomas looked at her, his own voice breaking. "Then let's make sure it wasn't for nothing." Over the next few days, they rebuilt the ship's systems. Thomas repaired the transmitter completely, tuning its core until it could send a new kind of message, one strong enough to reach every colony, every ship, every alien race across the stars. Leora stood beside him, still weak but smiling faintly. "What will you send?" He thought for a moment, then said softly, "The truth." When the transmitter finally came online, a bright pulse of blue light shot from the ship and rippled across the galaxy. Every receiver from Earth to Zarth picked up the same message. "This is Thomas Hale, human engineer, survivor of the storm planet. The law of the dead is broken. The past cannot rule the living. The storm has ended. It's time for peace." Billions heard it. And for the first time, No one laughed at the idea of peace between humans and aliens, because deep down they could all feel it. The storm inside them had changed too. As the transmission ended, Thomas powered down the console and turned to Leora. Her eyes shimmered with quiet pride. "You just declared rebellion against the oldest law in the galaxy," he grinned. "Yeah, I guess I have a bad habit of breaking things." She laughed softly, the first real laugh he'd ever heard from her. "Maybe some things need to be broken before they can heal." He nodded. "Then what happens now?" Leora looked out the window at the stars. "Now we hide. The council will come for us, but every world that heard your message will begin to question them. That's how revolutions start, Oster, with a single voice." Thomas leaned back, staring at the stars. "Then let's give them more than a voice. Let's give them a signal." He adjusted the frequency one more time, sending out a continuous wave, a heartbeat signal that would echo forever through space. Not a cry for help, not a call for war, but a reminder that once a human and an alien queen defied the universe together. Later, when the ship went dark for the night cycle, Thomas walked quietly to the viewing deck. The stars reflected off the glass and the planet below glowed faintly blue, calm, peaceful. Leora stood beside him, her long silver hair flowing like moonlight. She said softly, "Do you ever wonder why fate chose you?" Thomas smiled. "Maybe it didn't. Maybe I just refused to stop fixing what was broken." She looked at him with quiet affection. "You sound just like him," he turned to her. "Maybe that's because love never really dies. It just changes form." She smiled faintly. "Then perhaps you're proof that death was never stronger than love." The ship drifted toward the horizon, leaving behind the planet that once screamed in endless storms. Now it was silent, at peace. As they disappeared into the stars, the transmitter pulsed one last time, and through the static came a soft whisper, and distant, fading, but full of warmth. "I remember you." "Leora," her lips trembled, tears falling silently. "Goodbye, my love." Thomas rested a hand on her shoulder. "He's free now," she nodded slowly. "And so are we." The ship vanished into the deep, endless dark, two souls bound not by law or blood, but by the courage to defy the universe. And far across the galaxy, the new signal kept echoing. A single heartbeat in the stars, reminding all life, human and alien alike, that love and hope are stronger than any law.